The images you guys are seeing on screen right now are short clips of my apartment, and the images you guys are seeing on screen right now are photos that I recently took in my apartment. So in today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how I went from this to this and show you guys the entire process so you guys can use whatever space you have available at your disposal to create some really amazing photos. What's up guys, my name is Waldo. I'm a photographer out of Los Angeles, California, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you guys how I was able to turn my apartment into this really cool studio to take some really dope photos. And lately I've been doing a lot of my photo shoots in my apartment, so if you guys follow me on Instagram, link in the description or on screen right now, you guys will notice that it doesn't really look like an apartment. And in today's video I'm going to be showing you guys how to make any space a photo shoot ready space. Before we start this video, as always, make sure to go ahead and subscribe and like. It really does help the channel grow. While you're at it, go ahead and drop a comment in the comment section below. It helps the algorithm push my videos to new viewers, which is always greatly appreciated. And throughout the course of the entire video, if you guys are curious about anything, all links will be in the description to gear and to presets and to all that kind of stuff. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive into this video. I'm going to be breaking up this video into specific parts so you guys can jump to whatever part you want to watch, or if you guys are cool, you can watch the entire thing without skimming through it. But all the time skips will be in the description below. I still haven't figured out how to do like the chapters thing, so if someone wants to explain that to me in the comment section, that'd be really great. But yeah, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into this video. First thing I'm going to be talking about is the gear that I used for this photo shoot. So this photo shoot was a very simple photo shoot. I don't like to use too much gear when I'm doing photo shoots. Usually 1 to 2 light setup. This one was like a 1 light setup for most of it and a 2 light setup for some parts. And yeah, so it wasn't really too much. I'll show you guys what lights I chose to use for this photo shoot. As always, everything will be linked in the description below. If you guys want to pick up some of the gear that I use, go ahead and check out the gear list in the description. So the first light that I actually used in this photo shoot was my projector. So projector doesn't really matter too much. You don't have to get the specific model that I have. I have this model. It's an Epson. It's pretty powerful. It has, I think it's like 2600 lumens. I don't really know. As long as you can have more than 2500 lumens, you'll be fine. Projectors, as you guys know, I really like to use them. They're really great for being able to do some creative portraits. And I'm going to make an entire video on projectors and how you can use them to take your portrait game to the next level. But for now, just know that they're a really good tool. And if you can afford one, I definitely would suggest picking one up. So that's the first light that I use. And the second light that I used was the GVM 80 watt daylight balance light. I don't really know the name of it, but it's essentially just like a light. It's 80 watts. It's daylight balanced, just like the name says, and it's from GVM, so it's relatively cheap and pretty affordable for most people. And with this light, you know, this is like my go-to light when I need a light that I know is going to be pretty good on skin tones and pretty accurate in camera and really easy to actually use, because the 1% on this thing is like really dim and the 100% is like pretty bright. So it has like a really big range on it, which I really love. And it's really light, so I can use it on like my cheap light stands. I don't have to put it on to my C stand. And then at some point I did also use the Pixel G3, which is like a pocket light, but I don't think I actually ended up liking any of those photos. But if you guys see it in the behind the scenes footage, that's what light I was actually using. So those are the 3 lights that I was using throughout this photo shoot. And the modifiers that I was using for the GVM light was a Fresnel lens, which is a 10 times Fresnel lens. You guys hear me talk about this thing all the time. Link in the description. Really good. 10 out of 10 would recommend. And I think at some point I also used barn doors, which are just like the Godox barn doors. Again, link in the description. But yeah, I think that's it. That's everything that I used for this photo shoot. Nothing too crazy. Like I said, I like to keep it simple. But for all of you guys who are always bombarding me with questions on what gear I use, that's the gear that I used for this photo shoot. And of course I was using my Sony a7 III for this photo shoot. The lens I was using was the Tamron 28-75 for some of the photos. The other lens I chose to use was the Samyang 35 1.8, and that's because it stops all the way down to a 1.8. It allows me to get slightly better low light performance, which when you're doing a photo shoot with very little amount of light, this is very key. And then I think at some point I also used the 50mm 1.8 by Sony with like the cheap Nifty 50, but I didn't use it too much just because it was like too tight for the space that I was shooting in, and I wanted to capture more of like the scene, so I didn't actually use it that much. But that's the gear that I used for the photo shoot. As always, I also used my Dream filter, and I think at some point I also used my Starburst filter, so those 2 filters will also be linked in the description below. And finally, how I actually got the fog is I used a fog machine. Unfortunately, my last fog machine that I had broke, so I had to go out and get a new one at Party City for like 50 bucks. Really, really cheap, but it still got the job done. I use this model of fog machine. It's just like a 300 watt or 400 watt, I think. It's like a 400 watt fog machine. Nothing fancy, it just gets the job done. I use whatever juice they sell at Party City. So if you guys are always, you know, trying to figure out how I get my fog, I just use a really cheap fog machine from Party City. So shout out Party City. Go ahead and check the description for an Amazon equivalent version of the smoke machine that I have. But yeah, I think that does it for all the gear that I used. Not too much amount of gear, but again, I like to keep it simple. Next thing is setting up the scene. So in order to do this, I needed to get a couple of props, and the main thing that I got for this photo shoot were fake flowers. Now I always go to Dollar Tree for these just because for $1 you get like 4 of them. They're really cheap, and you know, if you just need them for like background or for little props, why spend a ton of money on like some fake flowers that are going to look fake anyways? So I go to Dollar Tree for my fake flowers. I went and got like $50 worth of fake flowers for this, alongside the other fake flowers I had. I also have some other fake flowers that I've thrifted. When I've been out thrifting, I always look for fake flowers. So that's the main thing that I used for this photo shoot. The second thing was this like black tarp. This is just a black backdrop that I had. It's like a cloth one, and I mixed it in with my actual black backdrop that I have because I wanted to have a nice black background, because I wanted the focus of the entire photo shoot to be on the model and on the flowers and on the light beams and stuff like that. And since I have white walls, as you guys can see, shooting against white walls just would not really isolate the subject as much as I would like to. So I used black on the back and on the ground for this photo shoot. And finally, the last prop slash item that I used were shower curtains. So I actually got 5 shower curtains from Dollar Tree. I know on TikTok I said I accidentally ordered them, but I didn't. I bought them on purpose for this photo shoot. If you guys follow me on TikTok, you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. I got 5 shower curtain liners from Dollar Tree for like $1 each. And essentially they're just really big pieces of plastic, which is what I wanted for this style of photo shoot. So yeah, that's the last thing that I used for this photo shoot. Now let's go ahead and start talking about the actual photo shoot itself. So for this photo shoot, I wanted to keep it pretty simple and not do too many things, just because I had a photo in mind that I wanted to get, and it just, my whole concept was this. I'll have it on the screen right now. This is kind of the concept that I wanted to, and I kind of got it, kind of didn't. But yeah, this was the concept that I wanted. Let's talk about the photo shoots. With this type of photo shoot, the one thing that I really tried to do is make sure that it's in focus, because when you're shooting in really, really low light scenarios like this, it's really hard to get that focus exactly how you want it to, because the camera's just going to go to wherever the brightest part is, because the brightest part's typically going to be the most in focus part, and sometimes you don't want that part to be in focus. So that was one of the things. I had to switch to manual focus for some of the photos, and even though I shoot Sony, this, you know, the autofocus was struggling a little bit. The other thing that I had to kind of work around was the really high contrast difference. So if you guys notice, the brightest point of the photo is really, really, really bright, and then the darkest part of the photo is really, really dark. So I had to underexpose, but I couldn't underexpose too much because then I would lose too much of the detail. So I had to really find a sweet spot where I could get a little bit of the highlights and a little bit of the shadows and kind of get a better overall image. I was shooting with editing in mind, so every time I shoot, I always keep editing in mind because I know that I'm going to have to edit it anyways. So I had to protect the highlights in this. I didn't do as good of a job protecting the highlights as I wanted to, but if you guys look at how the actual lighting situation was, it was pretty intense. That light beam was really, really strong. So it was hard to capture the entire essence of the light beam without blowing up the image. And, you know, it did happen a little bit, but at the end of the day, I'm still really happy with the results. So we shot the first look in about 30-40 minutes, and then we switched to the second look. With the second look, we did start off with something a little different that I ended up not liking whatsoever. Wasn't really too happy with the photos, which is why I'm not going to post them anywhere. I quickly, instead of trying to make it something that it wasn't and trying to be like, oh, let's try this, let's try that, even though I knew it wouldn't be good, I just told the model like, yo, I'm not really digging this, let me switch up the lighting, let me switch up the position, let me switch up everything into something that does look good from my perspective. And we did that. We brought down the plastic from the backdrop, put it all on the ground, and then I changed the lighting from like a beam to something a little bit more spread out, which was actually a picture of like a water reflection, just so you could get like those little highlights in the plastic without blowing up the entire image. And this turned out way better at the end of the day. This turned out way better. There was so many colors. There was lots of greens, blues, purples in there, which I don't really shoot, so it made this look a lot cooler. I did have my light coming in from the right side, and for the entirety of the photo shoot, that light, the GVM, was really only there just to make sure that her face was illuminated. and the main light source was the light beam and the projector. Basically that's the entire photo shoot. So let's talk about the editing with these photos. Some of the photos I did actually bring into Photoshop and tweak the colors in there, just because in Photoshop you can isolate colors a lot better, and with photos like these that are on the screen right now, there's a lot of color on screen. And although Lightroom does a really good job at isolating colors with like their HSL sliders, sometimes you want to isolate them even more, or just add or subtract more green, blue, reds, purples, whatever kind of color you want without affecting the rest of the image or the other colors in that same channel. And you can't really do that in Lightroom. If you guys want to see the entire editing process for this photo shoot, make sure you go ahead and check out my Patreon. I am making a Patreon later this week, and in the Patreon, I'm gonna be bringing you guys along with on all of the editing processes of all my photos and on every single photo shoot, as well as giving you guys the presets that I use for those specific photo shoots. Because when it comes to photo shoots like this, I typically start from scratch nowadays, and then from there I create a preset for the rest of the photo shoot and I tweak them as I go. So if you guys want to do photo shoots like these and you guys want to get insight on how to edit photos like this, set up photos like this, and learn all that kind of information, as well as get the presets for these type of photo shoots, make sure you go ahead and check out my Patreon, because I'm going to have that option available for you guys, and it's going to allow me to make a little bit more income from my photo shoots, which will allow me to make even cooler photo shoots. So at the end of the day, it's gonna be a win-win for everybody. So in this video, I won't be talking about the editing process, but on my Patreon, I will have that up for you guys. So if you guys are interested in that and you guys want to see how I actually edited these photos and want to see all of the in-depth tweaks and stuff that I did to these images, make sure you go ahead and check out my Patreon and support the channel through doing that. And yeah, I believe that'll be the end of this video. But if you guys aren't following me on social media, make sure you follow me at MoodyDarkRoom. That's on TikTok, Twitter, Pinterest, literally everything you can think of, I'm on there. MoodyDarkRoom, I upload different content to different platforms, so make sure you follow me on the socials so you guys don't miss out on anything. But with that being said, thank you guys for watching. I will see you in the next one. See ya. Check out my Patreon.